Hello, everyone. I am super excited to have you joining me, not only just for Young Women Run, a conference for politically ambitious young women, but for this particular track, which is for commissioners. And I'm super excited about our programming, not only for today, but just for the next 3 days. So if you are in this space with us, I just want to say thank you for answering the call. And I hope as a result of joining this space, you feel empowered and have some ideas about what next steps you want to apply in your journey in leadership. So, welcome. If you're wondering whose voice is coming through the airwaves, my name is Tiara Stewart, and I'm super excited to be entering into the Chief Program Officer role at Ignite. I previously served as Ignite's Fellowship Program Director, and I started that position in 2018. And I'm super excited not only to be serving from this new position, but also working with Ignite to further the impact, further the reach, and to take us to scale so that more young women will start declaring their ambition to run for office, but also actually putting in that bid for candidacy or just serving in any political professional position that they find interest and match their passion or sense of urgency or frustration about the way of the world, because that's really what brought me into this space. You can follow me at Tiara K. Stewart on IG, and feel free to come into my inbox for further questions if I do not get to that in this space today. And so this is what today looks like for day one on the commissioner's track agenda. We have first steps to leveraging your political power. And this is going to be a conversation with Wendy Doyle, who is the CEO of United We, on how to leverage political power and a first step to getting civically engaged in an appointed seat. It's going to be a phenomenal conversation. And I do hope that you're able to join me later today for the Define Your Mission and Take Action. I think she's going to drop so many gems for us. And I know you're going to wonder, okay, what do I do with all of this? So we're going to help you figure that out in our next session. And this is a little bit of what day two looks like. So if you're not able to join me for the next breakout, which is Define Your Mission and Take Action, right after this, we're offering it again tomorrow from 11:30 to 12:20. And then we'll have another panel, Leading Locally Serve Today. And this will be with some current commissioners or those who have those appointment decision-making seats. So they decide whose resumes go on to the next step. If you're interested in hearing from them on some best practices on how not only navigating the interview and application process, but what to expect when you get there, please, again, join us tomorrow. And then lastly, another conversation, your community can't wait serve today. So if you're like sitting on the edge of your seat and you know you want to do something, but there's still a part of you that's saying, I don't know if I'm qualified right now. I don't know if I have what it takes. You're not going to leave this space in day three with Shay, who's going to be moderating this panel, feeling that way. Not only are you going to feel qualified, you're going to know that you're more than qualified, and that, again, back to what we were saying earlier, simply your affliction or your experience in that community is the biggest qualifying factor for why you should be in that particular seat. So not to take up too much time, I want to get right into my conversation with Wendy. However, I'm really interested in seeing where do you fall on this spectrum. So if you want to share in the chat box your number on the census about why, how excited are you to define your call to service? A 1 being, I don't know about that, or a 2, a 5, yeah, I'm super excited and pumped up. And while you're trying to figure out where you're falling on the spectrum, I'm going to go ahead and start introducing our amazing speaker, Wendy Doyle, who's the CEO and president of United We. Wendy advances all women's economic and civic leadership using evidence-based research and policy solutions to make meaningful change. Wendy's nonprofit career began as a national major gifts officer in National Kidney Foundation, Inc. She worked as a nonprofit consultant who focused on board development and strategic planning. She later served as the executive vice president of Catholic Charities of Northeast Kansas. I'm super excited to be in conversation with her. But before I bring her into this space, I want just you all to get a little bit more knowledge about who United We is through this amazing video. All right, I am super excited. No, we're not going to watch this again. I'm going to bring in Wendy now. Let's see. Please stop sharing here. There we go. Perfect. Can you hear me, Wendy?
I can.
So I'm going to give you your first question. I'm going to figure out how to get this black box from NBC. Start answering.
I'm so impressed with your technology skills. Believe me, impressive.
I wish I had some tech support back here. I'm like trying to make sure everything is in full text. So let's just start off with our first question. Can you tell us about yourself and your journey to civic leadership? What called you into this work?
It's a great question, and we could really take the whole time up by talking about the journey, but some cliff notes to share with everyone. First and foremost, I am a twin. I have a twin brother, the two of us, and just the two of us. And so from the very beginning, I really witnessed and saw how young women and young men were treated and treated differently. And, I had loving parents, but, I saw there were some inequities in how we were raised. So I would think that I would share with the audience that really was my first exposure to leading me on this journey. The second one that I'd like to just comment about is, I was raised by a very strong mother, as I think probably a lot of women who are joining us today were as well. And my mom owned her own business. She is was an accountant. And when most of my friends' mothers weren't working. And so I really saw an entrepreneurial spirit by my mother, and it was very strong. But the second thing that I witnessed that was really important is that she really was all about lifting up other women and supporting other women. And my family was really involved when I was very young in the political process. And she was always encouraging women to engage politically and to participate regardless of what your party was, and encouraged women to run for office, and the importance of using your voice appropriately. So I really saw, at an early age, that led me to where I am today. And as you cited in my bio, my most recent position prior to joining United We, and I've been with the organization now inching up on 8 years, is that I worked for Catholic Charities, and that constituency group really primarily tipped toward women, mostly serving women, really looking for a hand out, not a hand up. And that really taught me that if we really were going to see any real change, it needed to happen at a systems level, which led me to the work where we are today. And I would just say through my journey, through my career, which I started out in the corporate work world and ended up in the nonprofit sector, really this aligns with my moral compass, my true north. It is who I am at my very core. And I've worked through this journey to really define, three key foundational principles that guide me in this work, which are based on humility. It's not about me, it's about us, keeping it simple and looking for truth. And I find the truth in this policy work that we do. So that's a long-winded answer to give you some background about my journey.
And Wendy, I loved what you talked about in regards to the socialization of why it was important to get engaged with the process that your mother did for you at a very young age. And I think that really speaks to identifying the way that women see themselves in this country. And not only that, in leadership, is the fact, are we telling them that not only they are leaders, but they can aspire for certain positions? And that is also a part of the process. So thank you for sharing that. I'm excited for our next question, which is for you. Can you tell us about the mission of United We and the importance of the work you are doing?
Yes, and thank you for that question. As cited in the video, we have gone through an evolution as an organization, and a core principle for us is really everything is based on research. So everything is fact-based, science-based, data-driven based for us, and really guides us in our decision making based on the research. And so research is something that this organization launched 30 years ago. We're celebrating 30 years now, and we build upon that. And we really, as I mentioned just in my intro, really looking for systems change and looking at what we can do to get the greatest return on investment for our dollars organizationally, but with significant impact. And we've identified that for us looking at policy change. We're a nonpartisan organization. We focus on economic development as our core principle and drives our policy agenda. And we really see that we know based on a McKinsey report that if we do our job right, and keep women participating economically in the system and to the labor force, economies can grow in our states by 10 to 15%. So we really, are driving on that point of let's really break down the barriers for women economically. And some of the policy priorities that organizationally that we've worked on have ranged from pay equity, paid family leave, looking at occupational licensing, the professional license that women hold. We're leaning now into childcare just based on, COVID-19 and the recovery of COVID-19 and pregnancy accommodation, just to highlight a few of our policy priorities for us. And then, along this journey, as we were spending time in our state capitals, we recognized and looked around and questioned where are the women? Where are our women elected officials, which really speaks to the core of this conference and the work that you do, and the need to have more women. And here in the heartland, we're about 23% representation in the state capitals, and we can do better. So through our mission, which is to advance all women's economic and civic leadership, we created for that policy piece to get more women in the state capitals, the Appointments Project, which I know we're going to talk about.
You really just highlighted something really important, even as it relates to economic development, that we don't really talk about that a lot. And what COVID-19 has really done was shine a light and really honed into what I like to say, the realization of the have and the have-nots in our country. The ripple effect of what happens when a woman is in a position, not only as the caretaker of the household, but when somebody gets sick and not having paid time off or paid leave, how are you taking care of your loved ones while also having to bring in the income? And so really thinking about policy that's going to support women all around, because we're no longer just staying at home taking care of the babies. We're doing everything. So thank you for sharing that, Wendy. My next question for you. United We has an Appointments Project program, something that you just mentioned. Can you tell us more about this and what a board and commission is?
Yes. So we launched the Appointments Project, as I mentioned, really as a strategy, hoping that the engagement of women may lead them to want to run for office. But we first based it on a research study, and it was a quantitative and qualitative research study. And we wanted to hear firsthand what are the barriers? What's holding women back? And when we were polling and asking women who were serving, who were elected officials, we asked them, did you raise your hand or were you asked to serve? And about 95% of the women said, I was encouraged to run for elected office. So that really sparked us to, want to lean into that issue. And it's something that I know Ignite has worked on as well. And we created the Appointments Project, which is really to build confidence in women to ask them to serve, because we know women want to ask to serve, to really take the mystery out of how to serve in this capacity and how to go about applying for a board or a commission. But we also have swung it on the other side and have really encouraged and worked with elected officials to really pay attention and to understand a critical point of what are your numbers? Do you know what your gender parity composition looks like in your city, county, or state? So we launched the Appointments Project. And what a board or a commission really is, it is directed by the government. These are government boards and commissions. They do have rules and regulations for the appointees, and they can be at a city, at a local level, a county, state, and obviously at a federal level as well. They are an independent body, appointed by an elected official, and really serve in a capacity of oversight in two ways, one regulatory and one advisory. And in the regulatory, it really goes back to that and why we ended up focusing on occupational licensing, professional licensing. There is responsibility for some boards and commissions to oversee the licensing, and to be able to handle complaints if there is, something that isn't ethically happening correctly within a professional license. And the second board or commission could be in an advisory board, could really just be serving as advice and counsel to an elected official. So that gives an example of two ways of how a board or commission can be set up at a city, county, state, and federal level.
Thank you for that, Wendy. And I am curious, because one of the things that you mentioned when launching the Appointments Project was as a strategy to get more women interested or actually running for office. So have you been able to see in your work that women serving on boards and commissions or part of participating in your program, that it actually has created a pathway for them to run for office?
Tara, it's a great question, and it's an interesting, really, what has started to happen. So a couple of paths. One is just by attending, an overview session for the Appointments Project, which is free and complimentary, to anyone at any time. Just by talking about it and just really identifying that, women want to be asked to serve, we have had some women raise their hands and go, you know what, that's all I needed to hear. And that, I'm not going to forego an appointment. I'm ready to run for elected office. So they've gone down the path of I'm ready, and I'm just going to, it's something I've been thinking about it, and this is the hand on the back that I needed. And they're moving down the running for elected office path. Others who have participated in the Appointments Project, who have received an appointment, have gone on to run for elected office. So it's not a one size fits all. It's really meeting women where they are. But what's terribly exciting is that it can open up, just by having the conversation, can open up the path and identify what's the best fit for the woman at that point in her life.
I love that. And just cultivating the question within itself can produce a numerous amount of different outcomes. Thank you for sharing that. And I think our chat box is up. I see a comment that made it through. My next question is going to be, what type of decisions are being made on these type of appointments? So I know you talked about the different types of boards and commissions or the purposes, whether it be regulatory or advisory, but could you give some examples on what type of decisions are being made so people can really understand the impact of these type of seats?
Absolutely. And again, what I would say to the audience today is that it really is a case by case based on the city, county, state, what's happening in that community. And there is not, one way that a board or a commission set up within a city, county, or state is, uniform across the country, and everybody's different. So I think that's the first and foremost thing to put on the table. But to give some examples of what kind of decisions are being made, I will give an example of under the regulatory example. For example, somebody could file a complaint by a patient about how a physician was maybe handling a case or handling how their healthcare, and that could be reviewed by the medical board of the state. So, really looking at something really detailed and specific. It could be something in an advisory capacity around a civil rights advisory board where they're investigating an infringement of a civil rights law, and that advisement, that, direction of what that board came up with could be shared with the Attorney General's office or the city's general counsel as just something to take under their consideration. So it could be those are two examples, but it could be something as detailed as the Planning and Zoning Board that's really looking at how the development that's happening in the city is really occurring and issuing tax credits to a specific developer to be able to bring that business to that community. So it is wide range And it doesn't mean that if you're not an attorney, if you aren't an attorney, that you wouldn't be valuable in any one of those settings. You absolutely would. We need everybody sitting around the table being a part of the decision-making process and bringing unique experiences and points of view to the table. But that gives an example of what some of the decision-making looks like for boards and commissions.
And I think you really, between some of the things that we were talking about in regards to especially what women need as the head of their households, and with whatever happens to the woman essentially is a ripple effect on the entire family, or whatever happens within the family, the woman is normally carrying the weight of that. And a part of what you just said, needing a seat at the table in order to determine, outside of making these decisions, but really just like, what are some things that we haven't talked about or that is not pressing that impacts us? Because what you see is when it's not equal representation, people come in with 90 degrees perspectives. And what I like to say, women have 360 degrees, because not only can we have the baby, we can also go to work. So with eliminating that other perspective, there's so many decisions that are being made without those key insights. And so I really want, I'm going to kind of combine these next two questions and see if there's anything you can offer around these. But how can people use this as a stepping stone in their political career for those who are new to civic leadership or just getting involved with their community? And why, outside of some of these decisions you were talking about that can be made within these seats, why is it so important that young women especially are considering to serve within the boards and commissions setting?
Great questions. I would say first, on the stepping stone in the political career, what's really valuable about serving on a board or a commission is it gets you comfortable with the political process and the decision-making process that needs to occur. And as we heard from our focus groups when we did the qualitative research and when we did the quantitative study around, what are the barriers for women's civic engagement, it really came down to confidence building. And so by serving in this capacity with others around the table and being a part of that political process, it really educates you. But I see really confidence building in women as a result of having that appointment. So that's first and foremost. It also gives you an opportunity by serving on a board or commission to hear from constituents and learning how to represent them as serving on a board or a commission. So again, being a good listener and learning how to use your voice to represent not just yourself, but also your constituency that you're representing, your community or your neighborhood. And it's really important that women, again, that confidence building, but learning how that process works. It also gives you exposure and builds a network. And I think that's, another key thing of expanding who you need to know and who you should know, and learning that through that appointment process. And then really identifying, this is a qualifying time to determine for yourself, is running for political office for me? And if it's not me, then who? And I think as women, we need to do, and we know that women want to be asked to serve, and we know that women should be lifting each other up. If it's not you running for elected office, then who can you tap to encourage them to run for elected office? And then being supportive of their candidacy. And then really identifying in your community, where are the key, like the Planning and Zoning Board or Commission in most communities is one of the key training grounds to lead participation to go on and run for elected office. So identifying those key boards or commissions that really would elevate your exposure and again, build that confidence to run for elected office. The question you asked about, why is it important serving on a board or a commission? Really, it goes back to that point that we talked about of bringing unique points of view and experiences around the table, having diversity around the table, really having the boards and commissions reflect what the population and the community served looks like. And that's critical. And whether you're a stay-at-home mom, you're an attorney or a physician, you have something critical to bring to that decision-making table. And it's critical to have all voices so that we can make the best decisions for everyone. And it really impacts, the bottom line, the decision making when you bring unique perspectives and points of view to the table. It's a great way to serve and to give back. It also, by having diversity around the table, really looking like the community, it builds public trust. And again, that leads us to civil discourse and really creating a culture and environment to want to encourage good leaders to run for elected office. So lots of key points there, but those are some of the key highlights that I wanted to share today.
I love that, Wendy. And there was a few points that you touched on that I really want to emphasize as it relates to how you all listening can use this as a stepping stone in your political career. One of the biggest things that stuck out for me is just it getting you comfortable with the process. So almost like a confidence booster, and then owning your power, learning how to effectively represent your constituents, the people in your community. It helps you to identify, is this my niche? Is this my calling? Is this what I actually want to do? And am I on the right journey? And then also something that you said, which I love, coined by Black women organizers during the civil rights time, but lifting as you climb, and don't forget to support others. So one of the last thing is, when you're thinking about, if you go on to the website, you research boards and commissions in your local city, trying to identify the key boards or commissions that's going to help elevate you in your journey of leadership when you think about your end goal, if it is to actually run for office. But if you're just trying to look for a way to get involved, this literally could just be that step for you to get in tune and involved with the community. And then our last piece around why is serving on the boards and commissions so important, and very short and plain, what you said, Wendy, was the boards need to look like the community. And so not only does it build community trust, but back to what Wendy was saying, just having those unique experiences around that table in those decision-making seats. And I did see a question come in before we wrap up with our final couple questions. Someone would like to know, and I can also shadow it here. Let me see. This is another cool feature. What is the breakdown of women of color included in your metrics?
Yes, that's a great question. And in our applicant pool, it's 24% representation women of color. And on our appointees, it's 28% of all of our appointees. To date, we've been successful in getting 140 women appointed. 28% of them are women of color. And I will say our first 9 appointees were women of color. And so it has been intentional that we really are, diversity, equity, inclusion at every level for the Appointments Project. Great question.
Thank you, Wendy. So do you have any advice for those who are listening, who are new to what this could potentially have been their first time even hearing about a board or commission? So I certainly remember my first time finding about it, but just understanding what these appointed seats are and how to identify which one they would like to apply for.
It's a great question. As you mentioned, you can certainly go to your community, to your municipality, county, your state, and there should be a website for the city, county, or state, and has an appointment feature so that you could look at what are all of the boards and commissions and appointing authorities, who they are, what the boards and commissions are. There should be a description of what the boards and commissions do. And if they don't have them, then that merits a phone call to the city clerk to ask. So it should be public information housed on the website. So I would say look first at the description. Secondly, you should know there is something for everyone. And whether it be something that aligns exactly with your skill set, or if it's something that you don't know a lot about, but you want to learn more about, there's an opportunity for that. I would say to everyone, you are uniquely qualified. And as women, we like to look at what the qualifications are for some of these boards or commissions. And women could have 5 of the 10 and still feel like they're not qualified. If a men looked at this qualifications and had 5 of the 10, they would think that they're absolutely overqualified and go for it. I would just say to women, you don't have to have every single qualification buttoned up. You bring something unique to the table, and that's what's most important. And I would say elected officials are looking for new faces to get engaged. So again, take down the barriers and know that you are ready to serve. I would also say that, to also get comfortable with this, some of the cities have video of, especially now during the COVID-19 pandemic, they have video of what some of the meetings look like. So they're archived and you could review that to get a flavor of what it means. I would also encourage you, these are public meetings that you could go and shadow to just observe and to see if it's for you. But feel comfortable. We know, as we have talked with women have lots of questions before they feel comfortable in raising their hand, such as the time of day of the meetings. Does it align with my schedule, or as for my drop off or pickup of my children? Do they have a meeting agenda, and do they stick to the meeting agenda and timeline? Because women are always concerned about how much time they have. These are all questions that you can get answered by talking with the city clerk, if not doing your own research by seeing what's available on the website. So I would say do as much research, but feel comfortable in asking questions. That's why they're there, to answer your questions. And finally, I would just say we have been intentional as an organization by identifying boards and commissions that have just all men on them, and really trying to change the paradigm and getting a woman appointed to that all male board. So there's another strategy there as well.
I love that. And I just want to reemphasize one thing that you just said. Don't feel the need that you have to have every single qualification listed in order to apply. Honestly, with anything outside of the boards and commissions, because that will stop you from a lot of blessings in your life. And I saw another great question came up in the chat. And I would love to also hear, I love books. So Wendy, could you recommend some books or authors that helped you in your journey?
Oh, that's a great question. I am reading Eleanor by David Michaelis right now, about Eleanor Roosevelt, and just a fascinating history about her journey. And I just find that a great inspiration. I love reading biographies. Let's see, another great one that I have read recently is I've done a little bit of research around Harriet Tubman, and I've really enjoyed learning about her history. For a podcast, I listen to The Daily, as a way to learn about what's happening and get quick snippets of, what's happening in the policy world. So that's something else that I enjoy. But I really like, as an organization, we've really started an piece on the legacies of women, because it's really important that young women see who came before us and the trailblazing women that cleared the path for us, and we need to learn from them. So it's really important that we bring forward that history instead of just, thinking about the present. And it's a priority for us organizationally. And, just a kind of a sidebar, one of the things that we've done here in the Midwest is we do not have a state park named after a woman. And it's something that we talked with our Department of Natural Resources about renaming and preserving the histories of some of these women who actually donated the land to the state. So just as an example, statues, monuments, biographies of women are extremely important to preserve our history.
Thank you for sharing that. I didn't even know that. And what I would like for us to all consider, before I ask Wendy my last question for her today, I want you, and this is something that we're going to talk more about in our next breakout, but I want you to really sit down with yourself and consider and ask yourself the questions: what do I care about? What moves me? What gets me up in the morning when my body physically don't want to move? What is that driving factor that I know I have to show up regardless? really consider that and let that be the anchor for what you're going to do next. Let that be the anchor as you're trying to determine your mission in life. Let that be the anchor when you actually get into the depths of the work and you don't know how to continue. Go back to that why. And whatever that why is for you, that's going to be the thing. It's almost like I like to call it the compass that's going to help you navigate your journey. I can't think of how many times I physically am so I say I operate out of a deficit, and the only way I can operate on lack of fuel is the fact that there's a sense of urgency for showing up in these spaces because I know that there are people assigned, and that I know if I miss showing up, it's going to forfeit the trajectory of so many other people who have been assigned to me in order for us to cross paths so that they can continue on. And I just think about all the women who planted seeds in me in order for me to show up in this day. So I dare not to allow any doubts that I have, which I have been really good about not allowing that in my head, but any the only doubt that I would say was is prominent is like, is this even going to change anything? Are we going to see the results? And so I have to ignore that because when I think about my ancestors, how they could dream of being free, and today when I think about those chains being broken from their ankle, and I'll continue to carry that flag, I believe that anything is I believe that anything is possible because I've come from the impossible. And so whatever that why is, write that down and keep it near and dear to your heart. And I want to ask Wendy our final question. Um, well, honestly, I'm going to add one more question just to go off what I just said. What is your why, Wendy? What is that thing that gets you going every day?
The why and what keeps me going is being a voice for the voiceless is really the motivator for me. And there are so many, just through my journey, through my personal leadership journey that we talked about. And really what I've witnessed is that women, weren't in a position to use their voice and to really, have systems change. And the why and what really drives me every day is just seeing their faces. I just, can picture them. And that's what motivates me to do the work that I do. I want to break down barriers for them and for our future generations. That's the why for me.
Yes, we are breaking not only generational curses, but also generational barriers that we just keep running up against. And Wendy, I have thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with you, and I know that our paths are going to keep crossing. And I'm excited that this was honestly my first time meeting her in person. So thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. And I'm pretty sure people are interested in figuring out how they can get more involved with United We in the Appointments Project. So can you tell everyone how they could get involved with United We in the Appointments Project? And I'm going to throw up some links for those people in these last bit of slides.
Tiara, thank you. It's been such a pleasure to meet you, to be with you, and I want to thank you for your great work that you do as well. To get involved with United We, we're gonna put up. Tiara's gonna put up. We have. Check out our website, united-we.org/appointments project. And again, as I mentioned, we host overview sessions of what does this mean. Again, a safe place to ask questions in a safe setting. And we, everything is done virtually, and we meet women where they are in the middle of the day, primarily over lunch hour. So check us out. That's a great place to start. And then the second thing is we've just have launched, which Tiara, you're a part of, is a group called Groundbreakers. And it's really engaging, our next generation of leaders to get involved with us as an organization, to be supportive of the Appointments Project, but some of the policy work that we talked about as well. So 2 unique opportunities to engage with us. And we just encourage you, this is all about supporting each other and lifting each other up, and join us in this effort.
Oh, there I am. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Boy, okay. I'm learning every day, y'all. Social is super new. I know for a lot of you feeling very intimidated when you first enter into this platform. Us at Ignite just gained access as of Friday, so I'm still learning myself. But I also, on top of it, going across the bottom, you can also just visit unitedwe.org. And we were in so much alignment, Wendy, today, because I just pretty much put up here everything you just talked about. I wanted to do a quick plug. So I'm a part of the appointment squad, and we are working on an agenda with our meetings and sessions. If this was like your first entry point to what boards and commissions are, and not only do you want to take more time to get familiarized with them, but you would like support with helping to identify the seat or just helping to learn more about how you can insert yourself in your community. If you do go to unitedwe.org groundbreakers, please sign up for the appointment squad. We are going to have a fully packed agenda, not only to connect you with people who are currently serving, but also just walk you through as well as provide resources that United We have blessed us with. So keep tweeting, keep hitting us on Instagram, and tell us what some of the favorite quotes of Wendy you had here today or in any of these spaces. And I will see you all in our next breakout. I want you all to take some time to get some water, some tea. If you're feeling fatigued, a bite to eat. And we'll see you in another virtual space very soon. Thank you all for joining.